So welcome to this episode of Menopause Conversations. Have I got a treat for you? So my name is Samantha King. I'm a workplace menopause coach and consultant. I'm delighted to have the formidable force that is Professor Joyce Harper here with me. Hello, Joyce. How are you? Well, I'm going to let Joyce introduce herself. I had the pleasure of meeting Joyce, and I tell you what, it is impossible not to be infected by Joyce's energy for all things relating to women's health. So, Joyce, introduce yourself to the listeners, if you will.
Right. Hi, everyone. I've been working in the field of fertility, women's health, reproductive health since 1987. I'm very old. And I'm a really passionate educator. So I'm also a scientist. So I've done lots of research. And most importantly, at this moment in time, I head two groups that are really relevant. I head a group called the International Reproductive Health Education Collaboration. It's a really long term. I'm sorry, we call ourselves IREC for short, which is a bit anyway. So we are passionate about helping everybody understand reproductive health from puberty to the menopause. So we are helping educate teachers, and we've been doing research around the curriculum in the UK and what young people know, and we've included about menopause in there. And we're also a repository for other people's resources that they've made, and it's very much an international group. And in different countries, there's varying amounts of educational resources that are already there. So we're bringing them all together and making our own. And there's absolutely things on menopause there. But with my other hat, last year, we set up the UK Menopause Education and Support Programme. And that came from years of research that I've done, listening to women through surveys and focus groups and asking them, what do they feel about the menopause? What's the problems? And the problems are they're not educated and they're not supported. And then I got together last year with some amazing people. There's so many amazing people out there. It's always good to bring them in. And we thought, right, let's set up this program, and we'll talk more about that. So I'll come back onto that. And so we're leading that. And the two projects I lead are very, very much aligned, because they're all about educating the public, health professionals, teachers, everybody about all of these issues, whether it's fertility, pregnancy, menstrual cycle, periods, or menopause.
Yeah, absolutely. And the golden thread that goes through that is really menstruation, isn't it? Obviously, once we get to the menopause bit. And so let's not delay the best bit at all. I mean, it's such, I mean, your book is amazing too, which we must mention, and we'll put a link to that. So your fertile years, that was a long time in the writing, wasn't it? Because actually you had that seed and you sort of worked through it, building more and more experience, putting yourself in those environments where you could learn as much as possible. Tell us a little bit about your fertile years, about your book, because it's a fantastic book.
Yeah, so I finished my PhD in 1987, and I started working in a fertility clinic. That was my first job. And I was learning all these things about my menstrual cycle, periods, everything, fertility, contraception. And I just thought, why don't I know this? Why haven't I been taught this before? I'm a scientist that's done years of training, and I didn't know. And I started writing a book then and there, but life goes by very, very quickly. And I didn't publish it until 2022. So it's called Your Fertile Years, and it's basically from puberty to menopause. And it's a little bit sciencey, but it's written for the public for sure. But there are so many myths about all stages of our reproductive health, and there's so much that I wanted to debunk, that I actually read lots and lots of science papers myself and just made everything I was learning and what I already knew very accessible for the public. So it is really readable. Someone commented on one of the first reviews was that it was too readable, but I want it to be readable. I want it to be accessed by the public. So whether it's a woman that's never worked, or 20-year-old girl that works in the supermarket or whoever, they can understand about their body and make informed decisions about their reproductive health. So that's where the book came from. And then that's obviously underpins everything that I'm now doing. So it's been a great rock to finally get that out, which I can lean on to feed into all the other work that I'm doing.
Yeah, and it's so important. And the reality is you're much in demand in terms of the press, and that is where one of the first places I saw you. Actually, I'm very lucky to have come to one of the first meetings that you did around the new program. So let's not keep people in suspense any longer. Tell people what is this national program going to be, because so many people are interested to know. People often ask me, it's one of the first things people say, I know you're involved in that, what is that about? But you tell people what it's about and how it's come about.
Yeah, so how it came about that my last years of research have been around menopause, have been asking women to tell me through surveys and focus groups, to tell me how they're feeling about menopause, what their issues, what's their knowledge, etc. So we've surveyed, I think it's probably close to seven, well, with the new survey out, actually, it's probably near 8,000 women. And we've done focus groups with various groups of women where we delve a bit deeper into these questions and can really talk to them about it. And you're not going to be surprised. They said, we don't know anything. We get to this life stage or get actually quite into the life stage. So several years they've been having perimenopause symptoms and they didn't even click that that's what it was. They didn't know that these changes that were happening. They often thought that the menopause was just hot flushes. So they didn't know that they were having perimenopause symptoms. It really affected their quality of life in a negative way. And they didn't join up the dots. So they told me they lacked education. And then also throughout all aspects of their life, they lacked support. And then last year, I got together some other academics at UCL to brainstorm. I realized there were so many people working on menopause. Let's get together in a room. And we got together, and Shima Tarek actually said she does a lot of work on HIV and women. So she's obviously lots of women that she's been working with got HIV and they're going through menopause. So she's been doing a lot of work around that area. And Shima said, let's make use of these pregnancy classes that we often have been to. When you're pregnant, you often go to these classes where, number one, you get educated about different aspects of your pregnancy through to delivery. But number two, you meet your local community, you meet other women and couples who are going through a pregnancy. You can all talk about, how your constipation is, how your, chilblains are, or indigestion, or, anything. You can support each other with your peer support. And many people still are in contact, years, decades later with the people that they met at those groups. So it's can be a lifelong friendship of support of women going through similar life stages. And we thought, this is fabulous. Let's do this for menopause. And my vision is that every woman in the UK, ideally before the age of 40, we need to do some preparation so they understand the menopause symptoms for sure, because that's the biggest problem. We don't want people to be 3 years suffering and then think, oh, it's the menopause, penny drops. In the meantime, they thought they were going mad. They thought they had Alzheimer's. They thought they had cancer and all these other things. We don't want that. So we'll have something to start off with that everyone has, ideally before the age of 40. And then when women are going through the perimenopause and they could really benefit from support from their community, then they'd come on a course, maybe about 8 weeks, maybe less, maybe more. This is what we're doing. We'll talk about this now, because what's absolutely key to my work is that we co-design this. So in the past, I've been guilty of this as well. We have made some educational resources for the public and we've just written them ourselves. So we thought, we know what they need to know. We'll just write it. And then we've put it out there. And we've realized that that is not the way to do it. If we want something to be aimed at perimenopausal women or pregnant women or whatever, we need to be in the room with them and ask them how do they want this to look? And we'll talk about that now, what we've done with the UK project. So we've made it much more difficult for ourselves, because I could write this Shima and I could write this right now. We could have it designed. We could be trying to roll it out right now. But instead, we're doing all this preparation work. But I think it's essential. I think it's it's a no-brainer. It's not, we can't do it the other way. We've got to do it this way. And this way, it will be really inclusive and it will be really functional for what women want to hear.
And absolutely, and I can give testimony to that, because having come to that first session, after that you decided what the program was going to look like, you sort of put it out to groups of people, and I was lucky to be in that space. I felt very privileged to be in that space, but also felt a huge I suppose, expectation on myself to make sure I wasn't leaving anything out in terms of giving feedback, because we do know, don't we, marginalised groups can be quite distrusting of the medical profession, I feel largely uncatered for. I have a mixed ethnicity. Speaking to people in the room, it's not just about ethnicity being a barrier, it's about maybe some disabilities, transgenderism, our communities, how we're catering for the deaf, the blind in our community. It's not as easy as just logging online. I was sat next to someone who I found so fascinating. I learned so much, and they said, well, it has to be a certain level in order to be visible for people who are partially sighted. And so we can't leave anyone out, can we? We sort of want to get into every corner of society with this potentially. And that's a great piece of work. It would be so much easier just to bat something out, wouldn't it, Joyce? I mean, you haven't made it easy for yourself at all, but for good reason.
I honestly, I think it's really essential. And I just love listening to people. And as a scientist, we should always be willing to change our mind. We should listen to people. We should look at data. We should absolutely change our mind and think differently if something stimulates us to do that. So at that first meeting, it was so great that you were there, and we had we had everyone in the room. It was amazing. It was crazy. It was great. It was one of those days. Yeah, it was a lot of energy. It was one of those days where I said, "Oh, I don't think we're going to get enough people." That morning, I think about 8 people told me they couldn't come, and I thought, "Oh my goodness, no one's going to come."
Oh
I'm sure
no.
you'll agree. We actually had too many people there.
We did. The breakout rooms were absolutely incredible. It was standing room only. It's like, okay, not enough chairs, but there we go.
It was great, but I loved it, and I absolutely appreciate that so many people, such as you and other amazing people around the UK, have done so much amazing work in this place, and we need your wisdom as well. So, I mean, one really key thing that we changed, or I changed my mind on from that day, that workshop, was that I thought that maybe the program should be taught by health professionals. So maybe nurses, probably number one nurses or doctors who have been through the British Menopause Society training course. And that would have been quite easy for us, because then they come to us trained and we just have to give them some, a little bit of extra training in education, and then they would go off and deliver it. But it was very, very clear at that workshop that there are amazing people out there who have already been doing similar things to what we want to do already for years, and that we need to make use of those. So we made it even harder for ourselves, because now we've decided that we have to design the training program, the full training program, for everyone to be able to deliver this. So I think it's great, because I think it opens it up a lot more, and there are so many people who are really passionate about joining this project, and it won't exclude anyone. They'll just need to come on our course, but we have to design the course now. So yeah, but we've got to do it. If we're going to do something like this, and as I say, I want every woman in the UK to be taking this program as they're in the perimenopause. We have to do it properly. We have to listen to everybody, and so there's so many things that we've, our mind map of where we are with this is huge, but it's also incredibly exciting, and I can't wait. But it's going to take a bit of time, but I can't wait to see the first course actually being delivered.
Exactly, that's such a milestone. I mean, these are all fantastic milestones because the reality is getting something like this off the ground is a huge piece of work. And you know, I have seen, you know, we go into the corporate environment and we have our audience there. They're all available to us. It's a very different thing to try and get people to come along. But certainly when I think of where I live, Joyce, I live in the heart of Devon. We don't have a menopause clinic. Everything is rurally much further away. You know, if I want to go do my shopping, that's a good 25 minutes in the car. Things aren't just on our doorstep. You know, the nearest menopause clinic is 250 miles away, and that is a private service.
Wow.
So my representation there is not just as a partially South Asian woman. I actually live in a very, very rural community where it's a big deal for people to get in the car. We're still quite old fashioned down here. Like we get in the car once a week for a reason and we drop our laundry off. We do this, we do that, and do the rest. So actually, you know, we have 250,000 women here in my county who are very much in need of this service or this capacity to come together as a community. And I loved what you said earlier. One of my favourite programs in the last 12 months is about the blue zones, and we can
Oh,
take a lot
yes.
of the blue. I mean, it's just gorgeous, isn't it? And you know that power of connection more than anything, even if you talked rubbish as a group of people, just being in with a group of people, it's that connection that we feel. And I think I really loved what you said. I think it has a huge capacity to bring people together, that community, that union with other people, and yes, learning and being educated and all of those things. I honestly think we can't underestimate that. When I sit in London, I'm thinking of the people in my community who would love, love, love this, and who currently aren't being served at all, really, as far as menopause is concerned. So, you know, it's going to be lovely. I mean, how long do you think it's going to take? You know, I know that's $1 million question, possibly. How long do you think it'll be take before we actually have something that we can really sign up and attend?
Yeah. So what we're doing, what we've done so far in the last year, and we have done quite a lot in the last year. So the first thing we did was we set up an advisory board. And we've got people like Dame Leslie Regan, who's the Women's Health Ambassador. We've got Carolyn Harris, the Women's Health MP. And we've got people from the representative from Wellbeing of Women, Royal College of Obs and Gynae, etc. So we've got amazing people on our advisory board, and we look at them as our critical friends. So we've had 2 meetings with them, quite long meetings, and we've brainstormed our ideas with them, and we want them to tell us
Mm.
really what they think. So that's the first thing we did. Then we did the workshop, which was fabulous, and we came away with so much information. And what we're doing at the moment is the next 2 critical parts, which is we have been running focus groups with different groups of they're mainly women, but they're not all women. We have a corporate one coming to see how we could roll this out in the corporate world. And we've got one with sexually minoritized and cultural differences and different disabilities and early men. We've got all different groups, focus groups, that we're in the middle of at the moment, to ask them what are their needs, how would they like this to look, so that we can then bring all of that information together. So they'll finish within the next sort of 3 months. And then the other big piece of work is the survey. So we have an online survey to basically ask the same questions that we're asking in the focus group, but to everybody who can't come. And the focus group really balances the survey, because even though they're asking the same questions, with the survey, it's more sort of yes, no, or, you know, they make a choice from what we've suggested. Where the focus group, we can delve deeper and really hear their voices much more about how they'd like this to look. So when those 2 pieces of work are finished, which will be in the spring, we're going to sit and analyze it all and say, okay, how should it look? And it won't be one program. There'll be we need to find a different word, but something like, well, there'll be one session for everyone. We want to be women under 40, but we want men to come to this as well, which will be something like Menopause 101, where we will just say what the menopause is and what the main symptoms are, so that women can identify when they're getting there. I'd like to do some of those face to face. I think that'd be great. So, you could get all your girlfriends to come along. I can have a glass of Prosecco, a cup of tea. and, but we absolutely have to offer online for various reasons to network different groups who might not have a high population in different situations. So we'll probably offer both those. So I'd like that to be out before the end of the year, well before the end of the year. So that's my first vision. But then the main course, we will have one that's for women that ideally will be face-to-face, but we'll need to offer that online as well. We also want to offer that within companies, but if we do it in companies, we want the men in the companies to be educated, but we want the women to have space to have peer support within their own company. So that's when we need to talk to companies. How would you like this to look within your workplace? But then we need absolute specifics for different groups, such as neurodiverse, cultural groups, LGBT, etc. So those are all the tweaks we're going to have to make to the main program. But as I said, we'll offer things online as well. And online, I want them to be very much alive online. They don't just sit there and listen to a recording. The whole point of this is not just education, it's support. So support has got to be bringing people together. Maybe you might have a trans men group who they're covering quite a large geographical area, but they could maybe form a WhatsApp group. They could possibly meet up. That's those sorts of things. So we really want to bring people together. So there's lots of those little nuances to make it really fit for purpose. To do this, because we also have to now design the training program for the facilitator, and we have got the rough syllabus at the moment, and we're fleshing that out. We are applying for hopefully a large grant to really have the resources we need to do this properly. So we'll hope that we have the grant in place in sort of some time, and then we can have a bigger team of people who can all be working on this. So I'm always very optimistic. I would love it if the first sort of the 101 was out by the end of the year, and at least some sort of draft or test version of the main program was out. But the things we do online and for specific groups of people are going to take longer, for sure. We've got to listen to more people, get things, test things, people who are partially sighted, people, all those sorts of things. That's definitely going to take a couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's
So
worth doing.
year, Max.
It's worth. I know, but it's like, but it is like literally birthing something, isn't it? Actually, it really and truly is, Joyce. No pun intended there, obviously, but that's what it takes. And I think when I came to that meeting, I was really humbled by your approach, actually, because you literally did stand up at the front. You went, I think we're going to have to change our expectation about everything. And you were so lovely and so generous. And I remember seeing an image of you. I only wish someone had taken a photo, because you literally took all the flip charts and you literally rolled them up. You said, I'm taking this all back to rethink this all. And I think you were then flying off to Malaysia in a couple of days after that. And she tucked it under your arm and you walked out the room with a sense of purpose. You said, this has been so good, but I never thought we'd have to change it like completely, that whole thing about actually really getting people on board. So I guess the question that people always ask me is, they go, that all sounds great, Amantha, that all sounds great, how much is that going to cost then? And so people are asking the question about, okay, something as great as this sounds wonderful, how is it going to be financed, Joyce, and how accessible is it really going to be for people?
Yeah, so in the grant, we have built in a health economist, a salary for a health economist. Finances, and I'm rubbish at finances.
Don't ask me.
I know, I'm really so my absolute dream would be that the woman that takes this in her local community does not pay. That would be my absolute dream, with the view that either one option maybe, but we need to hear the health economist, maybe offering this in the corporate world and charging the corporate corporations to run this within their companies will subsidize women who want to do it in their community, because obviously not everyone works. We don't envisage that every single company is going to take this up. There's other options that people like you already offer, and they're totally valid. So that's one way. Another way is to show the NHS. I think this is the harder route. We really feel very strongly that this will reduce the visits that women make to their GP, because women are telling me that, and they've told Shima, that they go to their GP because they don't know what's wrong with them. Yeah. And they really want their GP to educate them, and that's not the GP's role. So I feel very convinced that if we do the education, a lot of women won't need to go to their GP quite so often. Now we have to try and get data on that, and that would help us say to the NHS, okay, you should be helping with this, you should be subsidizing this. And there's the only main cost, because all the training program and everything we hope to have developed under a grant, and I am very passionate about doing everything for free. The international education group I run, everything we offer is going to be free. And I don't know if you know, but there's a lot of companies that make resources for teachers, and they charge the teachers for the resources, and it's really annoyed me over the year. I mean, they're companies, even if they're not for profit, they've got to pay salaries. So I appreciate that, but everything we've give to teachers, we're giving for free. So I'm very much, people shouldn't have to pay. They shouldn't have to pay for education. I'm really passionate about that. So yeah, if the NHS could partly fund it, but the main costs are going to be a room and the facilitator. That's the main cost. Where I live, we have a community hub, which is a free, as long as you're not charging, it's a free space. I hold a women's group there once a month. There are things like libraries, community hospitals. So we're hoping that we can keep the cost of hiring a room to deliver the course really to almost nothing. And then the only cost, we don't want to make any money out of this at all. The only cost will be paying the facilitator. The facilitator needs to be paid for their time to deliver the course. Absolutely, 100%. So we want their training to ideally be free, ideally. So yeah, I really think we could make this, I ideally free, or if not, very, very cheap.
Yeah.
But I can't guarantee that, and because I'm rubbish with money. So I can't guarantee that until we've heard from the health economists and looked at the different options for us to do that.
Well, exactly. I mean, and certainly in our work, Joyce, I mean, we have testimony that is the case. I mean, we do give one-to-one sessions. I can't prescribe, but I can do everything else. That's the only bit that I cannot do. And we've seen reductions in absenteeism of 30% in the workplace by just having one 45-minute experience with somebody. I can't tell you how powerful those are, and it concurs exactly with what you're saying. I mean, we always give a statistic that on an average a person will walk around with 8 symptoms for 14 months before they present themselves at the GP. 14 months. I mean, if you ask anyone to endure one thing for 14 months, let alone 8 things, and they're not connecting the dots. So we know that often this one opportunity to sit down, which is all centered around you and giving you the information that you need, is a game changer for people. Some people might need a second session, but what we absolutely know is, and can I say, it gets right up my nose, these 10-minute things that certain brands are offering, I don't think those go anywhere near, I think that is a marketing funnel, I'm going to call it out. That doesn't go anywhere near to what people actually need. If anything, I think those things can make things worse, because most people that we experience actually need 10 minutes to just say their truths and say how awful it feels for them and what they've been battling with or enduring or suffering. So I think you're already. I mean, we can always give you data offline, which can support what you're saying there. And these are people in their hundreds in corporate organisations, and I think our statistic is we've halved the number of 55-year-olds above leaving work just
Wow.
by education. And that's not with an
The-
EAP, that's not doctors being involved, that's not to do with HRT
oh,
prescribing, that is just to do, Joyce, with people under, because we were in Devon, remember, and we don't have a clinic. So the case study I'm talking to you about is exactly that. It's about support, education and awareness. So you're right. So is there anything that I haven't asked you that you might want to tell us that might either, I mean, obviously we've still got the survey game. That's one thing we must mention, that actually people can still engage with this process. Do you want to tell people a little bit about that? And we'll put the link on here.
yeah. So the survey, as I said, it's the same as the focus groups. We want to ask you to tell us what your needs are. So it's not like a bit of research to find out, about anything in particular. We just want to say, what are your problems? As you said, people need 10 minutes to tell us how they feel. In the focus groups, all the focus groups I've run, that's what it's like. It's 10 minutes just for women. Feel so happy just to be able to tell somebody about their own journey. So 10 minutes, you can't do anything in 10 minutes. So in the survey, you can tell us your situation, and obviously it's written down, so it's not quite so powerful, but it's a chance for you to say, what would you like the course? Yeah, would you like 6 weeks? Would you like 8 weeks? Would it work for you in your company? Would you like your partner to come, your male or female partner to come? Yeah, anything that could help us think about, okay, how should we develop this? And yeah, I mean, my only frustration, I do like getting things done really quickly, and we can't on this because we want to do this. This is a one-off. We're going to do this properly, and we are all very, very determined. And so, as I said, I feel that by the summer, with the focus groups and the workshop, we've got another workshop coming in June or July, which I hope to see you at.
Yes.
And with the survey, the focus groups and the workshop, we feel that by the summer we'd have got all the information we need to know how this should look. And then the next stage is, okay, let's now develop it. Let's sit in a room, develop the actual syllabus, which we are working on that now. We've got the draft syllabus. We're fleshing out some bits of that. And then the training program. So I just wish it was all here now, but I've got to enjoy the journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it is such a wonderful thing. I met the most amazing people. I remember walking back to the station after that meeting, absolutely thrashing down, had one of the best conversations. I literally came back with more energy. My husband said to me, he said, I don't know what happened at that meeting. He said, but you seem fairly buoyant and bubbly. And I just said it was so great to be in a room with, because it can feel quite isolating, can't it, Joyce? There's so many of us, and you sometimes feel like you're a bit of a lone voice, and it definitely didn't feel like that. And maybe that's what we want for people going through this time, and all the work that you're doing in terms of women's health is actually, you're not on your own. If that's the one thing that we can say to people, you're not on your own, and actually you can stand to meet some wonderful people, but like you said, could be lifelong friendships. And with that in mind, I do want to come back to a little bit of the personal you, because if you're listening to this, do go follow Joyce on Instagram, because I tell you what, it makes you sort of like wake up with a bit of a zing. You're everywhere doing everything. If you're not in the water freezing cold, you're at raves and things, aren't you? You love your music, you love dancing, you love movement, you love being with other people, women. Tell us about that bit of you, because I see so much of that in this program and your work, and I think You are different, Joyce. You're not your archetypal scientist or academic. There's something about you that's very exciting. You can't help but feel a bit giddy when you're around you. I mean, you're vibrant, that's for sure. Where does that come from in you? This people person, this powerhouse of energy. Where does that come from?
I've always been a people person. I'm the youngest of 5 children,
Wow.
also with a mixed background, which is partly South Asian. But I don't. I've always loved connecting people and listening to people. So years ago, almost 10 years ago now, when I was thinking of not writing the book but just having a website to talk about women's health, I set up a website called Global Women Connected. I just wanted to connect women. And so with this education project, with whether I'm doing it with schools or doing it with the menopause, I just want to get people educated and supported so they can make their informed choices. But also another piece of work I'm doing for my next book is I'm interviewing 50 women over 50 who would say that they're mostly happy. And I'm asking them very specific questions about their life, but lots about their lifestyle. So their nutrition, their sleep, their exercise, their friendships, how they feel their mental health is. And I'm going to write this all up. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to interview them all this year and then sit down in January and start writing. And I want to give all women that zest for life when they get to this stage, this postmenopause stage of their life, because I see too many women who have lost their mojo, they've lost their confidence, they may well have gone through a difficult time in the perimenopause, but I want them to come out of that and really live life to the full. And I do a lot with my women's group. We do a vision board we do our vision boards every January. And I'm very much, it does take a bit of work, but I think about what's going to make you the happiest person for that day, that month, that year. And what do you want to do? Because I think as women, we spend so much time in our lives nurturing everybody else. When you get to a certain age, you've got elderly parents, then you've got I've got teenagers here, teenagers. We look after everybody else. And I think that postmenopause is a time to start thinking a little bit more about self and what makes you happy, and think about what lots of, for example, in my women's group, lots of my women have gone back to hobbies that they had when they were younger that they totally forgot about. We've got very creative. We did pottery we made clay models on Monday.
Brilliant.
I don't know, I did put on social media what mine were, but you're not going to be surprised. It was supposed to be to do with love because it was Valentine's week. So I made a model. They're on the shelf, actually. I made a model of a vulva and a clitoris.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
I know. It was quite good. I'm going to paint them, actually. But it's just enjoying those parts of your life. I met someone yesterday who said they're going to retire. What are you going to do when you retire? Oh, I don't know. Okay, don't say I don't know. Think about your life and what you really need to do to make it wonderful, because we're not old, we're wise women. And I want women at this time of their lives to really enjoy every single year.
I think that's
So
so
that's
I think that's so lovely that you're saying that. I'm smiling because I don't know that you know about this part of me, Joyce. Actually, I'm also an executive performance coach, and
oh,
I use NLP, neuro linguistic programming. I was really lucky. I haven't publicly announced it, but I got my program trademarked. I went through a trademarking process, and it's all about midlife empowerment
wow.
for women. And everything that you just said there, the first session that we do for people is for you to discover what your purpose in life is. because once you understand what your purpose in life is outside of any social narratives you've been given, you then can understand, okay, what values support that purpose in life? What are my strengths that I didn't know about, that maybe a job has only defined me by? Where do I get my confidence from? And I'm smiling because, like you, I've got a group of people going through this process to give testimony about that program. But honestly, it lights me up when you suddenly see people shift up a gear into their best life. And that can happen at any stage, but I'm with you. I almost feel we should be preparing people, a bit like the menopause program. I believe we should be preparing people for all stages of their life, physically, societally, but psychologically more than anything else. Because I'm pretty sure that I was perimenopausal for 16 years because I had this toolkit that enabled me to blip in and out. And so I would still, when my hormones first started to decline, I lent into my NLP skills. And so I've held on to them up until last year. So now I'm postmenopausal. So listen, if you're still recruiting for those 50-year-olds, I wouldn't mind being one of them, because I do feel I'm living my best life. At 52, it hasn't got any better. And yet I raised a child during my perimenopause years as well. So I've got an 18-year-old at home. So I love everything that you just said there. And I think we need to have a bit more of that narrative, because I'm a bit tired of the narrative that menopause is woe is me, you're past your best. Honestly, if I had to listen to any more of that, this is the best time. This is where you step into your power, you embrace it, and you go forward. So I think that's what I resonate. That's what I can connect with you, Joyce. You definitely live by that mantra. You don't just say it because it sounds good. You're doing it. So, I mean, that is brilliant. So how can people get more of you, Joyce? How can they be in touch with you or know more about you? Because I'm sure they'll want to.
So I've got a website, joyceharper.com. I try to update it every now and then, but I do a lot on social media. I'm happy to come and I give a lot of talks to different groups about all different things. But yeah, so I'm really, really happy to do that. When I've asked lots of people on my podcast, I ask people at the end what makes them happy, and everyone says something different, but a very common thread is helping other people. Or when I say to them, what do you love about your job? And they say, oh, I just love it if just one person, I've helped one person. And you talked about sense of purpose, and that's something I'm asking on my interviews with the 50 women. You're on, right? I'll do that. I'll email you afterwards.
Okay,
but yeah, I just think that the negative narrative of menopause and aging for women has really driven me mad. And I just think you can lead your best life ever. I'd always said my best years were uni, when I was doing my undergrad. But now I really, really, truly believe it's now. So I've got two 18-year-olds, so I've got twins.
Funny. There we go.
So I definitely brought mine up when I was in the perimenopause. So for me, we are having a really important life stage as these two go off. My older one's just finishing uni. So, I think we need to embrace all our life stages with, positivity. So I just think it's an exciting time. It's really exciting. Every stage of our lives an exciting time. So
Exactly.
but I do truly believe we really have got to look after our mental and physical health, though. So I've always exercised. I've done body combat today. Actually, some friends asked me to go to the lake, and I said I can't. I'm going on a podcast. But I'm going swimming in the lake in the river tomorrow, and the lake on Sunday. But yeah, you have to look after your exercise. You have to look after your nutrition. I always cook my own food. We don't eat junk food or anything. I do eat chocolate though.
Yeah, but that's still good for you. If there was a poly pill, chocolate would be in it, especially high cocoa. So anything over 70%, I think that'd be all right.
We're trying. We're on 70% hazelnut. We can just about manage, but then we got 70% plain, and we were like, oh. Anyway,
really?
and yeah, and sleep. I sleep is my superpower. I think
Yeah.
sleep's really important. I think, yeah, looking after our mental health is really important. And as we said at the beginning, community. So yeah, community is great. I had a huge 60th birthday party last year, and everyone just couldn't believe that my 10 of my school friends were there. I had uni friends there. I had people I worked, my first job, my second job, some people I go day raving with were there. My swimming friends were there. Everyone was there. So that your friends are still there. Tomorrow I've got a big reunion with people that I used to work with when I was at uni. And I used to work in a restaurant in Covent Garden.
Yeah.
And I just, so those friendships, I think loneliness as we get older is really, really problematic. And even if you're in a marriage, you could be really lonely. So I really want people to just work a little bit at all those parts of their life, and it does take a bit of work.
It does. It does. And I'd agree with you. I felt so fragmented. I can remember particularly a 4-year period where I felt fragmented, broken, really, into 100 little pieces. But like in those sci-fi films, like when you see them all come back together again, I definitely felt that happened to me 2 years ago. And I did have a small group of people around me, but that loneliness piece for me, I think I could have so easily gone one way, but in fact I somehow managed to go the other. And we just don't want people to struggle like that, do we? And they won't need to. They won't need to. This program I think is absolutely brilliant. I feel really joyous to be part of it, Joyce. And so thank you for all that you are doing. I know it's going to ask a lot more of us individually, but for you I think more so. But we're so grateful. So if you had to say one thing, I know you've talked about many things, if you could have one vision for women going through menopause in 5 years, what would be that one thing that you would think, yeah, do you know what, that would be great if we had that?
I would like every woman to in my surveys I said, how informed do you feel about the menopause before the age of 40? And I want every woman to say fully informed, because there is not a huge amount we need to teach them. I want every woman before they're 40 to be fully informed about the menopause.
Brilliant. And one thing we haven't mentioned, what's your podcast called?
Oh yeah. So my podcast is called Why Didn't Anyone Tell Me This? So
Yes.
if you remember right at the beginning, I said in 1987, I was sort of learning all this stuff about fertility, and I thought, why don't I know that? So it was the obvious name for my podcast. It's all about education, but we're doing, sleep, aging,
Yes.
lots of menopause, fertility, women's health. There's been some fabulous guests on. I'm so lucky that everyone says, "Oh, come on, I'll get you on one day." But yes, it's I just love talking to people. Surprise, surprise.
Yes.
So it's wonderful to have brilliant people on who are doing wonderful, wonderful work. That's one thing that's so important to me. Everyone's doing such great things. Gather them in.
Yes. Yes.
Help each other. Don't
Exactly.
fight.
No,
Don't fight.
thank you for saying that, because honestly, that drives me bonkers. We're all
Yeah.
here. If we can all just line up for the same purpose, whether you're a celebrity, whether you're an academic, whether you're, anybody who's just got a passionate interest or a life experience story to tell, we're all here for the same reason. Let's never lose sight of that, because that would be terrible. But Joyce, honestly, thank you so much. I know you've got something else that you need to get onto, because of course you have, but thank you so much for giving me your time and for being the brilliant person that you are. I've really appreciated talking to you.
Thank you so much, and look forward to seeing you very soon,
Oh,
and
thank you.
interviewing you for my
Yes.
book.